Hi, I'm Eric Lubau, and welcome to Beyond the Belt. This is a conversation with Fabian Fitzner, a black belt out of Dubai, UAE. Fabian is a lifelong entrepreneur, network marketing expert, kite surfer, and BJJ school owner. I hope you enjoy our chat.
Hey, Fabian, thanks for being here.
Yeah, it's awesome to be here.
Thank you. Tell me what it was like to get your black belt.
Uh, it was a long road. That's I would say is a good way to start the story, because I was always a nomad, right? So most people maybe start in one academy and they stick to that academy for the next whatever 20 years. For me, it was a bit different. Let me maybe start from scratch. So
Go ahead.
I left Germany. I'm originally German, and you might hear by my accent. Maybe I try not to speak too much like the real German, But
It comes out a little bit here and there.
yeah. So we can't prevent. People always notice wherever you are. Hey, are you German? Yes, I am. So I started Jiu-Jitsu not in Germany. I left Germany after my military time. I was 4 years of military. Left Germany to follow my first dream, which was to become a personal trainer. Moved to Spain, so became a PT. After a while, I found out it's not that sexy to work by the hour. I need to be on the other side of the business, the gym owner who employs the PT. So my wife and I, we opened gyms. So we moved first to Fuerteventura, later to Tenerife. Had two fitness clubs, little catering service, personal training academy. And within my gym, I had a martial arts academy. And I was actually offering Muay Thai because my background was in striking. And I had a very good coach. And one day, one Brazilian dude came in and he was like, "Hey, can I actually rent the mats? I want to offer jiu-jitsu." And I thought of jiu-jitsu like what most people think when they hear it the first time, like a kind of karate thing with some throws, the Japanese old version.
Yeah,
And
Mexican ground karate.
yeah, so I thought, no, man, I don't like those guys wearing bathing suits and having like funny belts and doing their things, because I did judo when I was a kid, right? And he said, "Let's give it a try. Let me show you one lesson, and if you like it, then we can talk." Yeah, and then I found myself being strangled in all kind of positions. So I thought, like, okay, that might be something interesting and a good addition. And that was my introduction to jiu-jitsu, basically. Um, there was a big advantage. So Pietro, my first coach, he was a Brazilian, so it was like legit Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So the upside was he was a Brazilian. The downside was he was a Brazilian because he was never on time, right? He was always late. Sometimes he just didn't come up because just didn't appear because he went surfing or something. So as a white belt, I was in the position that I had to give classes without any knowledge, basically, because I had clients, right? So I just took what he taught like the week before, and I just went through it because through my sports study, obviously had the advantage of being good in didactics. So at least I could teach what I've seen before, right? So I fell in love a little bit with teaching, stood with those guys. He was a purple belt, by the way, but stood with those guys for a while. We had what was called the Sword Fight Club, like Sword, like South in Tenerife South. Had a guy who was a black belt from Soul Fighters who then kind of took over, and I was with them until my brown belt. And then I left. So we go into the business venture a little bit later, but I sold my businesses, never got paid. That's a different story for another day, or maybe for later in this
Maybe for
podcast.
later, yeah.
And went to Germany for a while and joined a guy called Peter Shearer.
Peter Shearer gave me my purple belt.
Awesome. So very, very amazing coach, a funny guy, a little bit crazy,
Yes.
but so knowledgeable. I mean, this guy is an encyclopedia. Do you say that in English like that?
Encyclopedia.
Yeah. So he's a book of techniques. You can throw a technique at him. He shows you 20 of the same position. Like, it's amazing. So, and stood with him for a few years, actually, and got my black belt from him and Gustavo Enrique Manjas, who's a coral belt. And that was in 2017. So it took me 11 years training in different gyms. So not only Spain, I traveled a lot also back in the days, but I was never really affiliated. So it was kind of tricky, but was a great feeling, because when you start jiu-jitsu, you think that's the end goal. But then you realize, oh, it's like I'm just getting started again.
When you started traveling, how did that impact like your view of people who stay in one gym? Because I also traveled the majority of my career.
I would say nowadays it has changed, but my first crowd was all Brazilians. And they were very strict to, this is our school. Even if they were not affiliated, it was always like, oh, you're the foreigner. So you can come, but we don't show you everything. But it was back in the days. So nowadays, that's, I would say, has changed a lot. And I lived in Dubai for many years, since 2017, actually. I can go into that as well. Which we had in Germany, when I got my black belt, I think we had around 25 black belts in the whole country.
Yeah.
It was so new. There was nothing much going on, right? And then I moved to Dubai, and we had 470 high-level black belts from Brazil, all working in one company, teaching the whole country Jiu-Jitsu. And then you went to an open mat, and I really felt like, oh shit, I'm a white belt again. Suddenly you're training with world champions who were world champion at purple belt already, all the way to black belt, roll with those guys and realize, man, a belt is really sometimes just to tie your gi, So
there's levels to this.
So you went from the how you say that, the goldfish from the water tank into the ocean,
Yeah.
Okay, different ball game.
One of the things that's really interesting to me is, because I travel so much and train in so many places, I find that the levels of what people know about certain things are. And if you get a gym where a lot of people drop in, and that's where I'm at in Berlin, we get drop-ins all the time because we have a huge mat. It's very difficult to find people who are good at everything. You find well, this person might be really good at deep half, and then they will do nothing else effectively. And you're like, but that was a black belt. How was I able to run all around them? But then you get them deep half, they get you in deep half, and you're like, oh no, I can't, I'm stuck. I can't do anything. And then you get swept. And, how do you find that traveling and skill set thing?
In general, I would say if you just follow the idea of the belts, there's different ideas, obviously, and nowadays it's also super hard to say what is black belt level, because there's competition black belts and there's amateur black belts, and you cannot have someone who's 56 years old who started in his 40s and not give him a black belt because he never won a competition. Right. This guy is consistently training and getting better. And nowadays I would also say, so in my world, the difference basically is there's competition black belts who are great in competing, but only a few can also teach, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think the mentality of the professor, like you say in Brazilian, right, is the ability to teach different techniques and to teach from all positions. But from a rolling perspective, I think you know everything, but you specialize on a few things you're really good at. And if you have a very hard roll, yes, you will always fall back into your A game. And the A game obviously is never super diverse, right?
Yeah.
It's more specialized, which also is an interesting thought process, because I don't mind getting tapped. I have an artificial knee already, so I have a full knee replacement. I have a lot of injuries in my shoulders, rotator cuff tears and stuff. I don't mind getting tapped nowadays anymore. But I know sometimes have such a big ego, because here comes the downside. If you go as a drop-in to a new gym and you are a higher belt, and it doesn't matter if you're black or brown, you have an aim on your back.
Yep.
Everybody literally tries to kill you and try to prove how good they are. Hey, I submitted a higher belt who just dropped in. So, the best way there is usually I just tell the guys, hey, let's roll smooth. And I only do as much as they do usually. If they want to go full force, okay, I'll go full force. I'm 110 kilos. I use my skill set and my weight, and a lot of pressure, but not necessarily if it's not needed. But then, yes, you would fall back into your A game, kind of, right?
I do the opposite. If I'm going, if we get, high level black belt drop-ins and they come in full force, I just tap. I'm like, I don't have the, my body's not up for this. If you don't want to go light, if we talk about it and they don't go light, and I'll just tap. I'm like, you win. They're like, but I didn't have you in it. Yeah, but I don't want to get hurt.
But I never had that with very good high level competitors or black belts. Usually there is, everybody's experienced enough to kind of start with a flow roll and adapt to each other in power, and in style. So. It's usually all my injuries happen with lower belts, to be completely honest. All of them, That's why I say nowadays I match. As soon as I feel, okay, we start with 50%, and someone goes like crazy, okay, let me ramp it up as well to at least match or like be a little bit higher, but it's more like protective, right? I don't, because as you said, just don't want to get hurt.
I often give people at the beginning of a roll my sleeves, like if we're in the gi, and I see how they grab them, and that's usually a good test. You know,
Yeah.
if they immediately reach out, grab it, they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna fuck this person up because I got their sleeves." I'm like, "Okay, I know, we need to."
Do you like more no-gi or more gi?
You know, as a former All-American wrestler, I feel way more comfortable no-gi. Like, it's easier for me, it's more natural. But over the last 2 or 3 years, I've really started liking the gi more, and so I've had to, and because now I teach a lot, I've ended up having to learn to like the gi, and I went from like to love. And so at this point, although I'm way more skilled no-gi, I really enjoy the gi more.
Yeah, for
What
me,
about
it's the
you?
opposite. I mean, I love the gi, so it's not the opposite, but um, I feel way more comfortable in the gi because I can slow down the game, right?
Yeah,
Especially when you have like super athletic guys, young guys. I
yeah,
mean, as soon as you grab the gi, I like a lot of lapel work, warm guards and squid guards and those kind of things to really untangle them. So there's not much advantage anymore by age or athleticism, you know?
yeah. Yeah, that's fair. How did you get the knee injuries? Was that jiu-jitsu related or was that something else?
No, so it started in military. I did a special forces training in Germany. So ripped my ACL,
Oof.
and but I had to continue because that was my first dream. So now looking back, I mean, I'm super happy that it didn't work out because being a soldier is possibly the worst thing you can do nowadays.
Yeah,
And
it's not ideal.
also the mindset changes, right? So you think it was more like the adventure. I wanted to jump out of airplanes, wanted to do like fancy diving and all of that stuff, right? But ripped my ACL. Actually, what was another funny side story? That was way before I did BJJ. I did breakdancing, so I was a b-boy, right?
Okay.
So and we actually did the world championship in the year 2000, the Battle of the Year, right, which is considered the world championship. But so I was training breakdance after my special forces training in the afternoons because I was really, really fit. Everybody was like super tired, and they told us, "Hey, after every day, you need rest." But you don't listen. You're a young guy, you know, you're like
You're
19, 20
invincible.
years old. You're like, yeah, I'm invincible. So went to a competition, a battle as we call it, did like a flip, slipped on, I think there was like some soda on the ground or something. So slipped, ripped my ACL, but the next day I had to continue. So I had like a swollen knee and I just played it down, didn't tell anyone, right? So wasn't a lot of pain because I didn't want to get kicked out, right?
Yeah.
For being stupid and for being injured. So
The joys of youth.
and so went through it. That was fine. It took a few weeks, but I just had the muscular support because if you do
Yeah.
sports every day for a few hours, so it was kind of fine. Then I had a diving accident. And by the diving accident, so I had to do like full body examination. They put me in a CT and they
Diving like
found actually out.
skydiving or like scuba diving?
No, scuba diving.
Scuba
I've
diving.
seen
Okay.
your skydiver. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, so I did the it's called like the Waffentaucher, which is kind of the equivalent to the Navy SEALs back in the days. Not exactly the same, but kind of the idea. That was the training I did or started. So they found that actually my ACL was ripped, and they said, "Look, you have knee problems. You have to make a break anyways. We're going to put you in the next turn. You have to fix it." So I fixed it. Problem is in military, you cannot choose your doctor. So the doctor I had was not very experienced. Was actually his first year, and he made the ACL a little bit too long. And the ACL obviously is there to support your knee to not sliding
Yeah.
forward. So now I had a lot of play in my knee, and it rubbed off over the years the cartilage. And
Oof.
now to your question, did Jiu-Jitsu play a role? For sure, because obviously, and also Muay Thai, because you do a lot of twists and turns. And over the year, it got worse and worse. I had 12 surgeries overall. They couldn't fix it. There's nothing yet for cartilage. I tried stem cells. I did everything that's on planet Earth.
Yeah.
Paid a lot of money to fix my knees and adapted my whole style. That's a good thing about jiu-jitsu. If you cannot do one thing, adapt your style to different things. I had to switch everything from one side to the other side, but worked out for many years. And at the end, yeah, I'm now 43 years old. Couldn't move my leg anymore, really couldn't straight it all the way, couldn't bend it all the way. Found a good doctor, and he said, "You're very young." I said, "Yeah, but look, I'm 43. It doesn't make sense to wait until I'm 65 and I miss the next, whatever, 22, 23 years of fun. With
Yeah.
65, I'm not going to do fancy stuff anymore. So let's do it now. Medical knowledge is anyways doubling every 6 months right now. And with super intelligence coming up,
Yep.
super artificial intelligence, I'm not so worried that there will be new techniques and possibly other possibilities to fix it once and for all in a few years, right? So that's the injury. That's my biggest injury I had, actually.
Have you fixed it recently?
It's a year ago. In June, June last year, I had the surgery. So now I'm already full on kite surfing, full range of motion. I didn't roll yet, so I went to training just to hang out with the guys. I live now between Dubai and Mauritius, which is also funny because in the whole country / island of Mauritius, there's 2 black belts only.
And
So
you're one of them?
no, I would be the third, and they were like
Okay.
so happy that someone from the outside came, And but that's even a more funny story because now we're jumping all over the place.
That's
but
okay.
I'm adopting a child, so my daughter's from Uganda, right?
Oh, nice.
So and we had to move to Uganda, so to keep the timeline a little bit. So 2017, I left Germany, moved to Dubai. So in Dubai, I lived for a long time, and we had our lives settled there. Everything was fine, and then my wife got the offer to work in an orphanage, and she always wanted to do some missionary work. So she went to the orphanage, working there. And while she was working there, she got introduced to a child that was like 3 months old, and she was given to the orphanage, was found. And she told me, "Fabian, I want to adopt that child. That's our daughter." So I said, "Okay, great. Then let's do that." But what we didn't know then is that you actually have to foster in country for a full year, which means you need to live in the country for a minimum of 1 year. So I packed my bags as well, and I moved to Uganda to an orphanage. So we lived in an orphanage for almost a year, right, in Mukono in Uganda. Then got the foster care order, became the foster parents. A little bit later, we moved out, and I got so bored because there's nothing to do. So I looked for BJJ. I said, "Okay, I need to train again. Like, there's nothing." And there's only one black belt in the whole country. It's one Brazilian, and he was giving classes 15 minutes from my house, right? So
Convenient.
I went there, and I've seen like a whole different culture because it's so interesting. Jiu-Jitsu is not taking off in Uganda at all. I don't think in Africa that much because also the competitions are very, very low visited. But it's a mentality and a culture thing. They just don't like to fight. It's crazy. Like it's a whole different approach. Always when people came, they feel very uncomfortable in the physical alteration. You say like
Altercation?
altercation, even if it's sports,
Yeah.
right? So we had around like 20, 25 students. I helped them a little bit so taught a few months because for them was also even from my friend the Brazilian, because he's in Africa for like 9 years and he hasn't seen another, let's say, like higher level player for years. Like I've shown him techniques he has never seen in his life because he
that's so
comes from
cool.
the old school Brazilian
Yeah.
basic jiu-jitsu, right? So that was also a good experience.
Was it like they didn't like touching, or was it that they didn't like fighting, or like what was it that was about the culture that didn't?
It's hard to say. Usually when you open, so right now we're open, so I'm now affiliated with Gracie Baja, and we're opening actually schools, right? So I have a school in Dubai, and in Dubai it's like completely different. You open a school and people just come because it's kind of people they know what jiu-jitsu is already, right? And they want to learn it. They want their kids to learn jiu-jitsu. In Uganda, no one really knows what it is. Like there's no culture around it. But you also don't have the classical like taekwondo schools or karate schools. You don't have that. Just doesn't. It's like nowhere. It's crazy.
So people just don't. One of the quotes, like or hate Dana White, one of the quotes that he's like gotten famous for is, if you see people playing basketball and you see people fighting, everyone's going to watch the people fighting, right? so fighting is something really endemic to humans, and I get that this is a culture that people that don't like it, but I mean, it when they see it, there was no like appeal or anything. Is like culturally no appeal.
I mean, I lived there for almost 2 years now. We're still going back and forth because the adoption is not finalized, but the whole time it's a very dense population. Like if you have like hundreds of people on the streets. Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't want to talk about traffic. I mean, people transport their cows on motorbikes. I mean, that was the craziest thing I've seen. So, or like 8 people on one motorbike, you know.
Now you've given me something I need to search for a picture for later.
I'll
People
send it to you
transporting
later.
cows on a motor. Yeah.
I actually took pictures.
Yeah.
Well,
I
of
would
course, it's
too.
not common. I don't want to talk bad about the country or the.
It doesn't sound
it's like a
bad.
really-
It's just interesting.
No, it's a really lovely country and really lovely people. It's like super rich of nature, and we have a lot of friends there and stuff. But it's just different when you're from the West, like when you're from like a Western culture. But it's like super dense, and in the whole time, I only have seen one single altercation, which was just one guy pushing another because they had some. I don't want to call it road rage, but they were stuck in traffic for like possibly were there for 2 hours. Because they don't follow rules, right? So imagine you have like a 2-lane street, and usually there's like one direction left, one direction right. Okay, so they drive the opposite. They drive left hand, and then one guy has the idea, okay, I'm gonna take over. So then another guy has the idea, oh, I'm gonna take over as well. Now we have basically 3 cars coming from one direction in a 2-line street. And then another guy on the other side has the same idea. So they will meet in the middle and they get stuck.
Yeah.
And now all the traffic piles up and no one can go back and forth anymore. And that happens on a regular basis, right? And we were stuck there for possibly 2 hours. And then one guy got super mad at another guy. But he just pushed him, and then immediately people came and put them apart, and then everything was fine again. So, yeah, physical altercations, I haven't seen a lot. I think that's everything I'm saying now is interpretation. So if any Ugandan is listening to that, sorry for that. Okay, if I might say something that is not true, that's just my perspective. But I think it has to do with, in the Western world, we are very much individualized. Everything is about the individuum, right? So it's about me and my family and so on. So there is very much the culture is trivial. So they have, I mean, only in Uganda, they have 86 different languages. So English is the main language, but every tribe has like kind of their own language, right? Every region. For example, if I go with my daughter somewhere, if you would do that in Germany, people would kill you. But you go to a restaurant and the waiter just, without asking, picks up my daughter and carries her around. Because it's that feeling of we are a community.
Yeah.
So, and I think that might be also one reason if something pops up, people go immediately in between and kind of split them.
Yeah.
And of course, on a bigger scale, there are people who one tribe hates the other tribe and all of that stuff. I think that's everywhere.
Yep.
But from the 55,000 feet view, I would say that's possibly the main difference. There's not so much fighting culture.
What was it like living in an orphanage for a year?
Interesting. I mean, you have kids everywhere. We had a very good house, so they treated us very well. So we had our own little shack, kind of with like one room with a little kitchen. I mean, regular power cuts, but that's a thing of the country. Even afterwards, we still have them. We live in a gated community now. I mean, they had like 200 kids, or a little bit over 200, living in different.
It's a lot.
They call it like units. Every unit has what they call an auntie, right? So one employee who takes care of that unit, and they have from baby age until 18, right? And they do a great job. It's a Dutch guy who does that, Peter, and he really helps the kids from growing up there until having a job. So they have like a secondary school. They give them education, training. They can become a welder, an electrician, like all of that, right? But also besides that, obviously it was hard because I just started a new business when I moved there. So what I did, so now my background is real, but I had my studio before in Dubai. So I took a picture of it, and I had a little like 3 square meter room. So I just painted the wall in green behind. So I had like my artificial green screen. Then I bought a little generator. Then I had a 20-meter long Ethernet cable, because there's no cable internet.
Yeah.
So they use like mobile routers.
Yep.
Okay. But I had no reception where I was, because it was in the middle of the forest in a village, right? So what I had to do is I connected that, and I took the router out and I hang it on the tree or put it on the roof. It was the only way how I could do like online calls and stuff, right? But that was the harder part. But then still I was traveling in and out. So it was a fun experience, definitely.
Is that something you kind of would recommend that people do? Maybe not specifically Uganda, but just like have a difficult section of your career where you're like, well, I got to make stuff up and see a different culture, or you know, how do you view that time in your life?
I think in general, whatever you do, it's always about being creative. Resourcefulness, I would say, is the biggest skill you can develop, right? Because people always complain, this is not working, that is not working, or I cannot go to sports because whatever, I have to wake up early tomorrow. So nothing is ever perfect, right?
Yeah.
And there's always obstacles, and each entrepreneur I know, and I think I know many or met many over the years into the thousands, everyone I know had difficult times, but it was always how they managed those difficult times to finally level up, right? So, but to your question, would I recommend that? I mean, what it really opened my eyes to is that things we think are our problems are not really problems. And you know that saying, like, first world problems, it really becomes a new meaning if you really go to a poor country. And very good friend of ours, for example, she was our mate later, became a very good friend. And now my wife built a charity with her in country. And she has no hot water, she has no electricity, and she has 3 kids. But that's how she lives, right? When she lived with us, for her, just having warm water was like life-changing, right? Or we had another guy, when we moved into a very big villa, which is comparable, like pricing comparability is very much different to Europe. So there you could get a villa with 1,000 square meters, which is like 10,000 square feet, I guess.
Yep.
For the price of a 3-room flat in Berlin. Okay. So, and we had 8 employees, which sounds like super decadent right now, but we had a gardener, we had 2 people cleaning the pool, we had the maid, we had a driver. So, but why did we do that? We didn't do that because we didn't need them, but they needed us. That was kind of how we thought about it. We even had one guy, the only job he had was opening the door and cleaning the street, but he was already in that house when we came. So the thought process was like, okay, we can get rid of him and save 100 euros, or we can really make his life better and his family's life and just pay him even a little bit more, and he will be happy, right? So that was kind of the thought process, even if it sounds like super snobby having 8 people.
It actually doesn't. The way you describe it sounds like you kind of fell into the community, fell into the mindset of it takes a community or it takes a village. You're like, hey, we're now a part of this, and we bring resources that they don't have, which in this particular case is money and access to it. And we support everybody in the way that we can, which is not handouts, but helping them in a way that they feel purpose-filled, which I think is wonderful. It doesn't sound negative at all to me.
Now, if you have contacts, yes, but imagine you would take only that snippet from that podcast, right?
But yes,
and
okay,
you put it online. Oh, we had 8 employees, lived in like 1,000 square meter mansion, then it sounds very much different. But if you have resources, I think like we're meant to give. So, for example, I'm a Christian, so I believe in God, and the 10th, right? So give 10%.
Yep.
And if it doesn't have to, in my opinion, it doesn't have to be money only, but it has to be your resources. And you always should give back, and you will get back 1,000 times, right? And if you have the opportunity, and we've all been in situations, I've been broke completely after I had my gyms, because I never got the money. I don't know if I mentioned that before, but
You
I
did.
sold.
I'm now curious even more.
Okay, so let me quickly get into that. So I sold my gyms in Tenerife with the idea to go back to Germany and build a new business, which is purely online, which we do for the last since 2013 now. So the idea was great. So my idea was, if I sell the gyms, I have enough money on the bank so I can build that business without a lot of pressure for the next 2 years, right? So that was my plan. The plan of the guy I sold the gyms to was different, because he had in mind he's never going to pay me. So we sold the gyms, paid off with the first check we got. That was the money we got. We paid off the banks. We paid off the landlord, because I had my gyms during the financial crisis. That was actually the moment when everything changed. And for the older folks here, that was between 2008 and 2012. Right?
Yeah.
The big
We're the
financial
same age,
worldwide
so
crisis.
I feel like I know
You
exactly
remember?
what you meant, but that's fair.
So, and in Spain, Portugal, and Italy in Europe were the hardest hitting countries. And in Spain, we had around almost 40%, 39, 38% unemployment suddenly. And obviously people didn't come to the gym anymore, right? Because they couldn't afford it. So that was the time when everything went south for us. But then we found a guy who wanted to buy the gyms. He bought them. So we paid the landlord, because we couldn't pay rent for a few months, like 2-3 months. So we paid him off, paid the banks off. And the rest we got in what's called pagaré. Pagaré is like a check, like a banking check. It's a little bit more secure. It's like right after cash, you would have this one, because you can go to court immediately and can say, hey, this guy didn't pay me. So would be a fast track. But anyways, he paid in those pagarés, and he paid them in installments over the next few years, in increments of $5,000, which would be amazing in Germany, right?
Yeah.
But first check bounced, second check bounced. I was already back in Germany. So he sold yearly memberships to his clients, actually my former clients, to the ones who had money. He sold all yearly memberships, didn't pay the landlord, took, I don't know how much it was. We only calculated roughly, but it must have been a little bit over 100,000. He calculated, left the country, was never seen again, right? So
That's certainly a business model.
yeah. So yeah, that was a very uncomfortable situation, because also we couldn't get anything back, because now all the machines which were in the studio obviously belong to the landlord, because it's his real estate. And he said, the guy also didn't pay me. I'm going to sell the machines now. So we're like, okay, forget about that. So we were really at the bottom of, I would say, like our entrepreneurial career, because after being slightly successful and living a good life for a few years, we fell down to having nothing. So I had to move in my grandmother's attic when I was 31 years old, right? So after being an entrepreneur, and a good example is my dad. So my dad always, when people were asking, well, how's Fabian doing? He was saying, oh, he lives in Spain. He lives on Tenerife Island. He has a big finca. He has like 2 fitness clubs. He has like 2 nice cars. As a dad, you're like proudly talking about your son and his achievements.
Yeah.
So now I went back, and now I live in his mother's attic in 30 square meters. Like, what shall he say now, right? My son lost it all. I always try to, like how people from the outside might see it, so I use my dad. So yeah, and we were completely broke. So I know, that's why I told that story. So I know how it is to be at the bottom and really looking for opportunities, or someone who can help you to get better, in your life, to level up, right? And
Yeah.
that's why I always like to give back, because I would have wished that someone would have just come and say, look, here's some money, I'm going to help you out. Later I had mentors, but I needed to actively look for them. Now I try to be the mentor if I can, and someone is open to just share my knowledge, how I think they can get better in life.
That's so interesting. I've never had mentors, and that's something I always wish I had. And so many people that I've talked to, both on this podcast and off, they say the best thing in their life for them has been mentors. And nobody talked to me about it when I was younger. It just sort of was implied. And now similar to you, I try to mentor as many people as I can, but I had no, this wasn't even an option, like in my head.
Which leads
What
back to
changed it for
Jiu-Jitsu.
you?
Yeah, which leads back to Jiu-Jitsu, because my definition of a mentor, because no one can be a mentor in everything, right? But you always can have one specialist in one thing you want to learn and get better in. And a mentor is a person who is where you want to be in a specific task or in a specific field and is willing to teach you everything he knows to get you there. So that leads back to Jiu-Jitsu, right? Where you would say, okay, what is the real black belt? The real black belt, let's take John Danaher as an example, like as the prime example. He's not a competitor. He's a true like mentor, right?
Yeah.
Even though his instructionals are 5 hours long for one technique, but
Very difficult to follow sometimes. Yeah.
but still, he's the real kind of. I mean, if you would do a movie about jiu-jitsu and you would have the old Japanese guy with a, like a martial arts movie with a long beard, that would be Danaher,
Yeah. He's still got the cane though. Like he still walks around with the, like he's got the Yoda vibe instead of the old Japanese guy vibe.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So in the beginning, and that maybe would be one tip I could give anyone is outside of the sport. If you want to become good at something, just look for someone who's willing to teach you. And the good news about these opportunities nowadays is you can just go online. I mean, there's, of course, there are also a lot of weird people and selling coaching and stuff. If you look for a coach, then always ask the coach, okay, prove me that you have succeeded in what you're coaching. So, and if someone can really prove that, perfect, then that's the person you can follow, right? But now for business, I mean, there's great people like, let's say like Alex Hormozy, or let's say Gary Vaynerchuk, like real entrepreneurs who have an online presence and they give so much content for free. You don't need to pay anything. That could be your first mentor to get a better understanding if you want to build a business. But later, it's always good to find someone who is close to you and really would take you by the hand personally. That's the end game, I guess.
How do you feel people should differentiate between like proof and charisma? Because I mean, you said it, there's people, sometimes selling bullshit, but like if you are not an expert in that thing, how do you suggest somebody differentiates between proof and charisma? Because I think about that a lot too. Like I don't have a good answer.
I would say also the proof doesn't have to be the person itself, but it can also be the clients. And let's go back to Danaher. He never was a world champion, but he produces a lot of world champions. So there is a proof, definitely, even though he never succeeded himself. Same in football, or as Americans call it, soccer. Like the real football. So like our is the real football.
Yes.
No,
I agree with you, by the way.
Okay. Because we use the feet to kick the ball,
Which makes sense to me.
But it's the same thing. There's some coaches who never were great players, but they just produce great teams. So that would be the proof in general. But of course, there has to be I would say like a wavelength if someone talks to you. If you have, let's stay with Danaher as an example, because I think he's the perfect guy for that. So we know he might possibly be the most knowledgeable jiu-jitsu coach in the world right now. Okay. But he doesn't appeal to everyone because, as you just said, it's like sometimes so boring to listen to the instructionals. So I rather buy the same thing from Gordon Ryan, who also starts speaking like him, but just shorter,
Yeah.
So, but then you learn the technique maybe a little bit faster because the way he teaches, his charisma, whatever, speaks more to you than maybe the other guy. So I would say both is important, but I would always take proof over charisma, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of thinking about it. I just always want people to feel like when I coach or teach, like my thing is feel comfortable, get people to feel comfortable, meet them where they are, and then the communication can begin and the learning can begin because they feel safer. And I know sometimes people shortcut that with charisma. And I think that particular thing is very interesting to watch people sort of fight through.
I think the main thing in our, let's call it business for a moment, jiu-jitsu as a business, right? Because also, as I mentioned, we're building Gracie Barra schools right now, and there's a reason why we've chosen Gracie Barra as a franchise, right? So the reason why we've chosen them because they're super strong in culture and community. So and they basically have all the strategies and tactics down, and it's proven that it works because they have over 1,000 schools already. But on the other side, they also produce a lot of high-level world champions. I mean, Gracie Barra is always in the top 3 if you look at the schools worldwide. So we have kind of both. But the reason why people at the end, my opinion, stick to Jiu-Jitsu, I've seen once a statistic that the fallout rate is actually higher in Jiu-Jitsu than the Navy SEALs if you go from white belt to blue belt. Like more people quit than in one round of the Navy SEALs in percentage, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true, but it was like a funny comparison. But people stick if they have a community, right? If they really feel home. And that, I think, leads back to the charisma. If you have a coach that really makes people feel like you belong here, right? I love you. You're part of the family. That maybe that also sometimes maybe it is even more important than just the technical aspect, that someone improves like super fast and becomes a competitor or something.
Yeah. Is that the kind of lesson you took off the mat? Like, if I can help people feel like they've got a family or they've got a community, that they're going to grow into a better, business leader or.
Yeah. So in my specific business, I would say like the main business that broke me or that helped me to get into financial freedom is network marketing. And network marketing is, I would say, a business that not everybody understands and people have mixed opinions about it, right?
Yeah.
And because it's like everything. And let's take like the straight comparison to Jiu-Jitsu. This podcast is about our sport. It's the same in our sport. You have like great people and you have assholes, right? And you have those people who try to kill everyone in every training and today I'm going to take a limp home, and say that for fun, but they mean it for real.
Yeah.
And you have those people who really are there to help the community, to make people better, and so on. And it's the same in my business. For those who don't understand, let me give you like a super old example. Everybody might have heard of like super old school Herbalife or Amway, which were the first network marketing companies, the first big ones, let's say. Amway was actually the first real one, and then came Herbalife much later. The concept is pretty simple. The concept is basically just a company says, look, I have products or service. The goal is, like with any company in the world, I need to find as many customers as possible. But here we give the customer the opportunity to talk about the business or the product, and the customer can make money by selling it or refer new affiliates to the company. So concept is pretty simple.
Yep.
What's the problem? The problem is that not only back in the days, but also nowadays, you have a lot of untrained, I like to call them white belts in our business. Okay.
I think that's a good way of thinking about it.
Who spam people on Instagram, right? Like, join my business, I make you rich, false promises, and this and that. And don't treat it like a business anymore, but treat it like a quick, rich scheme, which it is not. And plus, there's a lot of, let's keep the comparison, bullshido, like bullshido gyms.
Yeah.
And there are like many network marketing as well, like who are hiding as network marketing, but they're not. And that's why it's like controversial. But on the other side, for me, when I started that business, so that was my time when I was I still had the gyms, and I really wanted to have an online business. Or in other words, back in the days, my goal was I need a business without a door. Okay.
Yeah.
Because if you have a door, one person needs to open it and one person needs to close it, which was usually me, right? So, and I knew network marketing because when I was studying sports, I did that as a side job just by selling a little bit of aloe vera supplements and perfumes. It's a small German company who does that. But I learned everything for free about entrepreneurship, like the basics. I learned for free in that business by my, back in the days, mentors. And they were not like huge mentors, but they were better than I was in certain tasks, right? That's why.
Yeah. I like your definition, by the way. I think that's a really good definition because it doesn't put anybody on a pedestal. It just says, here's a set of things that this person can help me with. I think that's a wonderful way of thinking about it.
So I knew the business works. But obviously back in the days already, people were like, oh, what are you doing? That's whatever, like a pyramid scheme, and came with their like biased opinions without having any knowledge. So later, when I was an entrepreneur already, and I've made a lot of money with my gyms. And I looked at it again. I said, okay, this time I put my entrepreneur glasses on and let's look at it from that perspective if it makes sense. And from an entrepreneurial perspective, it makes a lot of sense. So then the next thought was like, shall I listen to people who are not successful, or shall I listen to people / mentors who are already succeeded in that business and see if I can do too, right? So, and I mean, everybody knows what does not work. And specifically, you live in Germany now for 7 years. You know Germans, right?
Yes. Very pragmatic and risk averse.
So yeah, and me as a German, I can talk bad about Germans every day.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why I left the country, right? Because the German is literally, you call it like risk adverse, I call it feared, right? They have fear of everything that's new, right? Complete opposite of Americans, where everything was based on the American dream, right? And in America, when someone is successful, that person gets usually celebrated. Not today anymore so much. I know the politic has changed a lot, and unfortunately, but in Germany it was always like that. If you succeed, you have to hide your success.
Yeah.
If you have a big car, and let's say like someone rides a Porsche, the typical thing as kids, what we were not taught by our parents, but we obviously copy what parents say and elder people say, was always like, oh, he needs to, he possibly has a small genital, that's why he rides like such a big car, like those kind of things, that's like typical German. So, but anyway, so Germans always not skeptic, but sometimes almost hateful. But here's something I learned over the years, and I think that's a very, very powerful lesson. And if someone wants to write something down, take a pen now and write this sentence down. There is no hater in the world that is more successful than you, period.
There is no hater in the world that's more successful than you.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and if you want to realize that, because also on social media, it doesn't matter, like if that podcast is growing, and it will grow for sure because there's so much interest, the community is so big, there will be hateful comments, right? Like, and you're like, why? We have a good intention, right?
Yeah.
So, but then at the end, do those people have a podcast? Do these people wake up at 6 a.m. in the morning to be ready at 8, to interview a guy who sits on Mauritius? They won't,
I'm somebody in general who works hard. I'm CTO of a tech company. I do this podcast on the side. I teach Jiu-Jitsu. I do executive coaching. Like, I like doing things and helping people. And I don't think I've ever phrased it like that, but in general, I just try to avoid being a hater because it's just energy wasted for me. And if somebody wants to hate on this or me or whatever, go right ahead. I've got other things going on. I've got a busy life. And so I don't waste my time. I just do the things that I want to do. And usually it's pretty fruitful.
Yeah. We always like to say, or I always like to say, when I say we, I mean like my family, my wife and I, because we're together since 20 years. We build everything together. So I always like to say, in Germany, there's often too much opinion for too less knowledge.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's a worldwide problem.
Yeah.
In general, but yeah.
So, but getting back to the main topic. So network marketing. So we started to build. I talked to a few people who are very successful, and I said, just show me how it works. I'm going to ignore the people who are not successful. I want to learn it. It took me a while. So it took me almost, I would say, like 2 years to understand how it really works. Right. But we became financially free, like completely free after, I would say, like after 3.5 years into the business, right? Because we understood, and now comes to close the loop, because we understood it is literally about help other people to become successful. And I didn't understand that in the beginning, because when you start a business, and look, all those people who online tell me I do it for a bigger purpose, for me, it's all bullshit. You start a business to make money. That's why you start a business. Right? So, but later on, or if you're already successful in your life. So I think when you started this podcast, and correct me if I'm wrong, the main purpose was not to maybe create an additional income stream here, because you're already successful. You don't need it that much. But if it turns out to be successful financially, perfect.
That's exactly it. I don't make any money. I don't really have an intention of making money with this. My goal is to help people get onto the mats and showcase that this community is full of wonderful, whole, complete learned people.
No, but
Yeah.
if someone says, I create a supplement business because I want to help people. No, in the first place, you want to make money.
Yeah.
And if you then help people buy that, perfect. Just my opinion, how most people
I agree
function.
with you completely.
And that was how I started. When I started my new business venture in network marketing, my first goal was I want to make money, right? So I did all the mistakes that most people do. I ran around everybody who was not on the tree on count of three, as we say in Germany, right? So I would approach them. I talked to strangers in the city because I didn't have contacts. Much later, I learned how to work professionally, and that's what I teach nowadays, to not fall in that.
So one of the things that I'm curious about, because when I was young, my mom got into Herbalife and I learned all about network marketing, like the broken sides of it the hard way, too much inventory, not enough focus on sales, focusing on the affiliate side. What are some red flags that from your experience that newly interested people should be looking for their safety? And what are some green flags? Because I genuinely.
Yeah. I mean, it's very easy to, first of all, Herbalife is a legit company, right? So, I mean, they sponsor big football clubs, they're on the jerseys, they're listed on the stock market, but they made a lot of, I would say, like trial and errors. I never worked with Herbalife, but I'm very deep in the industry. Don't want to go like like I do complete lectures on the history of network marketing,
Yeah.
but that would be a little bit too much and too boring for people.
Just high level green flags, red flags is what I'm curious about.
So, but just to quickly understand why people had big, like super big orders back in the days. That wasn't a scam. That was literally an idea that didn't work out. It was called front loading, right? Back in, we're talking the 80s, 90s, right?
Yep.
No one
Early
does
90s.
that anymore nowadays. That's not happening anymore. But they literally said you can order a bigger chunk of products and you get a higher discount. But of course, the company expect the people also to sell it. But then what did what we call uplines do, right? Like the people who are above, like and managing the affiliate system, they were like, oh, if everybody orders a lot now, we all make a lot more money because a lot more products get sold as we get paid on volume. And instead of, my opinion, really leaving it to the people who can sell, they sold like those huge packages to everyone, and that's where the old saying comes from. Oh, I know someone who still has a garage full of products. That was in the 80s, 90s. That doesn't exist anymore, right? But yeah, what are the green flags, the red flags? First of all, you need to have a product or a service that people also would use if they don't do the affiliate program. That's number one, right? So, and this also eliminates all the crypto and financial schemes that are out there. They don't produce anything. There is no, let me think of the English word. There has to be a chain of production, kind of, right? So let's let's go into economy just for a second. What's the only way on planet Earth to make money, to generate an income? Is always trading. It's sales, right? So, and if you work as a support agent in one company, you get paid by the sales the company does.
Yep.
We can agree on that, right?
Yeah.
So, and if you work for the state and you say, no, I'm a policeman, I'm a whatever, fireman, yeah, you get paid by taxes, which get paid by people who sell something. So it always leads back to that, right? So the main idea always has to be, is there a product or a service that gets sold? And if the answer is yes, you're already on the green side, right? Yeah. So, and then second thing I would look out for is the company around for a certain amount of time? It's hard to say nowadays. Back in the days, we said at least like 5 years. But nowadays, life cycles of each companies worldwide are so fast, you cannot even say if a company makes 10 years, even if it's very successful. Yeah. I used to work with a company for almost 13 years. The company, for 11 years. The company, I think they're still around, but they had their peak after 6-7 years. They made like $8 billion in sales, fastest growing company in the industry out of the United States, out of Florida. But they're about to close down now. So it was a giant, So you cannot say that anymore, but I would look out for, I'd say, like at least regulations, like which country they're sitting,
Yeah.
So if you have an American company, you usually are very safe because the most regulated country is the United States, right? So if you want to look for that, right? Um, then yeah, you should look at the compensation plan, like how much money really gets paid out. If you see they pay out over 100%, it's impossible. That will
Yeah,
never work
exactly.
out. So it has to be like a healthy balance. And in general, if you want to do the business, look for a good support system, good mentors who really teach you and have your success in mind. I would say that is way more important than the company itself. Like find the right tribe, back to community, right?
Yeah.
Find the right tribe that really wants to help you to succeed. And now going back to that, we don't forget the questions. What changed was literally the same approach that I after a while said, okay, let's not focus on myself now, but let's now really do this thing what I heard from all the big speakers. I don't know if you know about Zig Ziglar or
Yep.
Tony Robbins, you might know as well.
Yep. Of course.
And everybody always said, Jim Rohn, everybody always said, help other people to become successful and you will be successful. And I always thought, of course you say that because you're a millionaire. You're on stage and it sounds good. That's bullshit. But much later, I understood that is true for every aspect in life. Circle back to Jiu-Jitsu. If you help people to get better, will you be successful with your school?
Yeah.
Right? Have you only keep in mind that you make money? Not so much.
I think it's this really interesting balance of like, it's if you focus just on, you have to focus a little bit on your success in order to help other people be able to achieve their success. And so it's like finding that balance of when do I focus on myself to figure out when I can switch. Cause I did the same thing in my earlier career. I was really focused on myself, learning martial arts, building the businesses. And until I got to a point where I was reasonably safe and successful and secure. And then my view completely switched. And now the majority of what I do is helping others, but I could not do that if I hadn't focused on myself.
Yeah. There's another saying, you have to be selfless to be, what's the right word in English?
Selfish to be
You have to be
selfless.
selfish to be selfless. Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's the same thing with the, I think a good analogy is the airplane, right? With the oxygen mask.
Yep.
Like,
Put on yours before you help
put
anyone
yours
else.
first, because only then you can help people, right?
Yeah.
Because you can never act positively out of fear and anxiety and problems. You gotta have yourself in order.
That's a really good lesson. And that's something that I wish I had learned earlier in my life, in my career, because it would have in many ways given me more of a goal. Because I didn't know why I was spending so much time working on my professional skills or working on my martial arts skills. I was just doing it because. But if I knew, I mean, I don't know that I would have bought into it, but if I knew that there was that goal of like in the future, I'd be able to like live in service of others in many ways, I think it would probably have helped me with purpose and direction.
Question is if you're young, if you would even accept that idea,
Probably not, to be honest.
No, me neither. Everything came at the right time.
Yeah.
And there's another thing about success. It's like many, many years ago, but I heard and read about that study that the average lottery winner is broke again after 7 years.
Yep.
And that includes like every level of wins, right? Like the people who made like 20 million, the people that made like 1 million. And the reason is pretty obvious, because those people never became the personality to receive such amount of money.
Yeah.
But if you first develop your personality and you get the right mindset, and then the success comes later, you can handle it.
I think that's a really, yeah. And I didn't put effort, at least me, I didn't put effort into in all kinds of personal growth when I was younger. I put it into my professional success. I put it into physical stuff. But I think the last thing that I put the effort in is like, the self growth, the self-awareness, the emotional growth. And now it's making it more difficult to learn, but I think it's something that would have been incredibly helpful when I was younger. I would have been a better manager. I would have been a better leader. And yet I was still leading soldiers. I was still managing people, just doing it very poorly. And it made living in service of the community a very difficult thing to do, not knowing how to sort of navigate those things.
So you also were military in the US?
I was.
Yeah.
I did 8 years in the military. I was deployed to Iraq. I did a bunch of National Guard stuff inside the U.S. had a bunch of trainings with some internal stuff with like Rangers and Special Forces stuff. So I've really trained around the military a lot.
Did you train in Germany, Grafenwöhr, Hohenfels?
Nope. I
Okay. Because
completely unrelated.
I was stationed there for 1 year, and that was before Iraq, actually, because we're the same age. You said
Yeah,
that was
we are.
before Iraq, and like we managed all the checkpoints. Maybe we have cross path there. Sometimes the world is small, you know.
I have found that it is of the military very small. We came through Germany. We entered into Iraq through Germany,
Rammstein, or-
and Rammstein.
yeah.
We were there for I think 2 days, and then on the way out, we were there for 2 or 3 days. So I don't know that our paths would have crossed there, but
Sometimes the world is small, you know.
well, given that Peter Shearer, we both trained under him, and we were both in the bill, I'm surprised our paths haven't specifically crossed, or maybe they have, and we just don't remember.
No,
One thing.
I left 2017, as I said. So you trained with him before or after?
Just after
Yeah, okay.
2018 or 2019, I forget. It's somewhere in that area. One thing
Yeah,
I
I was
wanted to
always
ask
away.
you about that I think is really interesting about the way you talk about network marketing is I think just a good idea in general is like the 4 pillars of success of self, industry, product, and company belief. Um, the thing that I really want to know is when did that not work? Like, because I love having these like, hey, here's how I think about things, but I also really like when something stops functioning and you got to
Yeah.
work
So
through that.
the 4 pillars, you got that from one of my videos in the
I did
research,
get that
or
from one of your
okay,
videos because I like doing research on people. I like learning about
perfect.
people and then talking to
Okay.
them.
Yeah. So basically, let's go into the 4 pillars, and then I get into my story with that.
Yeah.
So basically, I mean, the green flags, obviously, product and service. You need to be a product of the product. Like, don't do a business where you don't believe in the product. That's number one, which leads back to only doing it for the money. It's hard to grow, right? So number 2 then is choose the right company. Just make sure that you have a company that um, that fits you, I would say, right? So if you're not into supplements, why would you work with a supplement company, right?
Yeah. Fair
So
enough.
yeah. So next thing, like management overall, or the company as a management, can I do I relate to those people? Can I believe those people? What about the team around, the infrastructure, and so on? But the hardest part is the believe in yourself, right? And this is where I struggled the most, I would say. So I even had a moment. Okay, so this is a good loop to close the story from before. So we sold the gyms. I was already doing network marketing with a company also out of the States. The company was called Monavi. It's not around anymore, so I can mention the name. So this company sold acai juices, which is an interesting
Yeah. Steroids for
correlation to
jujitsu
Brazil.
people. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but they sold acai juices in wine bottles. Okay. So, and I started with them, but it didn't really work out. So actually, I started in Spain already when I had my gyms, and during having my gyms, I already started building my little group. And also to those people who say, I don't know anyone, or I cannot build a business because I don't have time. I was working 17 hours a day in the gym, opening in the morning, closing at night, and I still found time to meet people in between and talked about the opportunity, the product, and so on. So if you want to find a way, there is a way. That's what I want to say.
Yeah.
But anyways, sold the gyms, went back to Germany, lived in my grandmother's attic, had that plan to build that business out, but it really didn't work. I was literally running against windmills. I don't know if you say that in English
We
as
don't,
well.
we say running into the wind or running uphill.
Okay, that's coming from, I think, the Don Quixote. You know
Yeah. Don
the
Quixote.
story. Yeah, okay, Don Quixote. Yeah, we call him Don Quixote. Anyways, so it just didn't work out, and I was really struggling to pull off my business. I never made more than, I think the maximum I made ever was like $2,300 in 1 month, but on average it was like $1,000 a month. So as a side hustle, that would be an amazing income. Imagine you have your main income, and with a side hustle you make 1,000 extra. Paradise.
Yeah.
That's, by the way, what 99% of people in network marketing do anyways, as a side hustle. But I was full time. And then you have taxes, and then you need to meet people, and then you need to buy coffee if you have a meeting somewhere, right? So it wasn't enough. So I did something I thought I will never do in my life. I took a job. Okay. So I took a job, was a friend who has a sales company in the fitness industry. So he employed me and I said, okay, I need that to support my family because it's just not going. I'm trying, it's not working. So I would say, like, I loved the job for the first 60 seconds. Okay. Because when I came in and I sat down, the first thing they told me is, please put your phone in the drawer. We don't want to see your phone at work. But I was always self-employed and they wanted me to do sales. Like, how do they expect me to do sales when I'm not allowed to connect? No, you have to use the company phone. And also, you cannot go out. You have to do everything on the phone. And I tell them, guys, I'm a sales expert. I meet people. I build relationships. Let me drive to the gyms. Let me meet. Nope, that's not how it works. So I started hating it after the first minute, right? But I did it anyways for like 6 months. And I was kind of trapped again in the rat race. Yeah, and by rat race, I know many people like their job, but it's not too many, right? It's like most people actually don't like what they do. They don't wake up in the morning and say, oh, I'm excited to meet the people at work. I'm excited to do what I get paid for. And I admire everyone who is. But in my case, it was literally every morning, fuck, I have to go to work again. Right?
Yeah.
So, and then time was so slow, right? I thought it's like, whatever, already noontime, but it was only 8:30. So anyways, I stopped literally because I was so frustrated. I stopped building my own business and I did less and less and less for my own business. And I fell back into that rat race, literally, because I was like, man, I'm getting paid. I hate it, but I'm getting paid. I'm safe. And I was never safe. First time in my life, I was sick and I didn't show up. I didn't know that as an entrepreneur, right? It's not like that you just stay home, you know? So did less and less and less. And there was a point where I completely quit. And one day I came home. My wife and my back in the days best friend Christian were in our like 30 square meter apartment, and our little, like, there was only one table in the middle, a couch, and then a little sleeping area. And they were sitting at the main table, and I came in like exhausted as always, and they're like, "Okay, Fabi, we got to talk." I said, "What's this?" And I don't know if you know How I Met Your Mother, if you remember the TV show. You know, the intervention when they put up the signs like that, yeah, but without the sign. So literally say, "Hey, we gotta talk." I said, "What is it about?" And I said, "It's about you." I said, "Yeah, okay, then let's go." And I was not really into it yet, but then my friend said, "Fabi, I want to know what happened to the guy with the vision, the guy who really wanted to lead, the guy who had a big dream, the guy who wanted to be a big leader. I see a guy who comes home every night, is frustrated, sits down on the couch, watches Netflix, and goes for the next day. That's not you. What happened?" Right? And I said, "Oh, I'm just doing a little break right now. I will go back to my own business a little bit later. I just need a little bit of red." And he looks at me and says, "Stop bullshitting. Like, I'm your best friend. This is your wife. Like, what is going on? We want to know the truth." And it was the first time I had like a little watery eyes, you know, and I said, like, the truth is, I think I'm not good enough. Like, I try as hard as I can, but it's not working out. Like, I see all those other people, like my mentors, my friends, they're all succeeding up to a point that they're making millions. And I'm building, I'm losing. I'm building, I'm losing. I'm building, I'm losing. Maybe it's not for me. Maybe I just can't do it. Like, it was so much self-doubt, right? So I just didn't believe in myself. Then he said, and that was actually the turning point of the story I told you before. So he said, "Okay, before you quit, okay, I want you to think about one thing. If you give up on your dreams, you will also give up on other people's dreams." And I tell you why. Because there are people that are following you. They have heard your story with the gyms and how you came from Spain and that you're building that now. Maybe you talk to them yourself. Maybe they have seen you on one of the seminars speaking. If you give up now, you also will make them give up because they will not believe in themselves. So far, they believe that you believe in it. That made them believe in themselves. So I just want you to be clear about that. And that was actually the moment when we decided, okay, let's give it one more shot, but this time let's focus on the success of others instead of our own success, right?
It's
So
really great that you have people that are doing that for you, because not everyone has that kind of support. And the fact that you had not one person in your wife, but a second in your best friend, that's like an incredible stability.
Yeah, but that leads back to the whole topic, personal development.
Yeah.
Because my best friend is a very successful coach. And we went together to Tony Robbins seminars. I mean, we went around the world. I possibly spent around, over the years, possibly $250,000 for personal development seminars. Not at once, like over the last whatever years. Of course,
Yeah.
it's always in relation to what you also earn, right? But the best investment you always can do is the investment in yourself. I think everybody has heard that.
Yeah.
And if people tell me those seminars are bullshits, these are wannabe gurus, how come that the first 2 rows are all multimillionaires in those seminars, right? So I always try to get a ticket in the front. Nowadays I can afford them. Back in the day it was a real hustle.
Yeah.
But just the network of those people lifts you up tremendously. I know so many successful people. I actually have contact nowadays to billionaires. I never knew where would I find billionaires. Now I went to dinners with billionaires. Just because I have people in my network who have them in their network.
Yeah.
Right. So there's another very old quote from Jim Rohn, who was actually the mentor of Tony Robbins. He was the first economical philosopher in the United States. I think they would count him. And he always said, you are always the average of the 3 to 5 people you spend the most time with. So choose wisely. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's one tip I always followed as soon as I heard about it. And now back to the loop, Jiu-Jitsu, same thing. Hang around with 5 high-level black belts. You will see how fast you get to super high level, right?
I just want to ask one question. Like you, at this point, when you were struggling, you were probably at least a brown belt or something like that. So I've found that in a lot of ways, jiu-jitsu gives people, even if it's just one in that vertical, it gives people like self-confidence that they often didn't have before. Did you find that you were feeling safe in your own capabilities, or did you find that you started questioning jiu-jitsu as a function of, well, I'm not really happy in my life? Like, where was that interplay of like self-confidence when you were struggling?
I think life is always easy to learn backwards, So,
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
Now, so now if I would nowadays be in that situation, and I have been in that situation, because the company before, we've built together with our team over 1 million customers and distributors in 133 countries over a decade, right? But that was a huge business. We had 17 millionaires in our group, and then tremendous success. But then 3 years ago, we restarted with a whole new business. So we just made a cut voluntarily, because I've seen that this company wasn't last much longer with that success. They were declining. My check dropped, which also equals that the check of my people will drop. So we restarted from scratch. And that was a hard decision to say, okay, can we do it again? Right? Can we really rebuild again with new people from scratch? Because not everybody was keen to leave with us, So nowadays, yes. Back in the days, to answer your question, I never lost doubt in jiu-jitsu. Was kind of my anchor, I would say, because the cool thing about that sport is, if you have a lot of stress, and I also suffered anxiety, panic attacks, not really depression, but that came from my military times. Possibly,
a lot
of
I very
people.
much get it. That transition leaves you with depression sometimes. It's really a struggle.
But also the high, like for me at least, I think it's also a little bit possibly genetical how you can handle stress. I can handle stress very well, but as soon as I calm down, I can't handle it anymore. Right? During stressful situations, I'm there, but then the switch to that, my nerve system says, okay, now you can relax, now you're safe. I cannot. Like when I moved to Uganda, because I didn't know the country, we were in the forest, I was always on alert.
Yeah.
And if I hear a noise, boom, I pop up. I say, okay, I got to protect my family, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, jiu-jitsu was always my outlet, because in jiu-jitsu, you're literally in the fight or flight mode involuntarily, because you're in a fight, even though you don't get literally hurt, right?
Right.
So, and that was always helping me to, in highly stressful situations, to, I would say, like, to calm my nerves. So quite the opposite. Did I answer your question actually?
Not exactly. The
Okay,
reason,
sorry.
the thing that I'm asking, no, that's okay. It's a very specific question, and it's something that I've thought about a bunch. Like when I go through difficult times, and I know I'm still good at something. Like I know I'm still good at jujitsu. I know, now I'm really good professionally, but like I still have in my back pocket that I was an All-American wrestler. Like that sort of should give me confidence that I'm capable of accomplishing something. And yet I still was like, how can I be so down on myself in this moment? And so the question is basically, you were really down on yourself. Like, I don't know if I'm cut out for this, but yet you had made it to brown belt in jiu-jitsu, which is not an easy thing to do in and of itself. Like, where was that confidence, or did it not transfer for you in those moments of struggle?
No, it didn't transfer in those moments because for me it was so different doing mind work / business to physical work.
Yeah.
I played European football. Let's call it this way. So I played European football in the highest youth league. Okay, I played beach volleyball in the highest leagues. I did the world championship in breakdancing. Right, then I did the didn't finish, but started the special forces training in Germany. And before I got injured, was told that I was one of the best in the class. But this was all physical, right? So, but now the entrepreneurial road was literally, it's not depending on me. So I cannot perform myself and suddenly everything works. You need patience, right? You need to learn new skills, but you don't have an instant feedback like you would have rolling. Okay.
Yeah.
So hopefully that answers it. So that's why I could never really say, hey, I accomplished and achieved so many things on an athletic level, but I cannot transfer that to my, to my entrepreneurial success.
It answered the question and actually more than I was specifically asking, which I really like. Like it's this thing, it's this difficulty of like, if I'm successful at one thing, can I be successful at another? Or if I'm successful at this thing once, can I do it again? And you actually answered both of those questions in like the last 3 minutes, which I think is super interesting.
Yeah.
What made you think that you could do it again? Like leave your current job and like go, hey, can I build the same-ish business a second time and be successful? Because that's like one of those things all entrepreneurs ask themselves.
Yeah, but later it changed because later I had the skills, right? When I started the first time, I literally didn't know what to do. Like I didn't know what to teach people. I knew how to sell, right? So I could sell people a product, or I could sell people the idea of build your own business with me and become an affiliate if you like the product. And then we build customers together. I could do that, but then I didn't know what to teach them exactly, right? So now I am such a good trainer in our specific industry of network marketing / sales, right? That I can take a new person, a random person, a housewife from where they are and make them successful if they want to be successful by really teaching them the skills. Because every business, I would say, is a skill-based business. Same like any sport, it's a skill-based sport, right? No one can just randomly come in and dominate everyone just by nature or talent. It's not going to work, right?
It does that, yeah.
So,
you can't see red and just take someone down.
So I think what really gives you security is two things. Number one, your skill set / personality. I think skill set goes very much into your personality, because the more skillful you get, the more secure of yourself you also are, if you go into any conversation. And the second thing, so basically there's two things that no one ever can take from you. I mean, when you realize that once, then you kind of are safe, I think. Number one is your personality / skill set. Number two is your network. And a great example is Donald Trump. And I know not everybody loves Donald Trump in the United States, but in general, if you take him as a businessman and you would say, okay, this guy was $1 billion in depth. So how did he come back? And I don't care what funny stories people come up with. The truth is, he had the personality, the knowledge, and the skill set. And he had the network of people who say, yes, I give you the money, I borrow you the money because I believe in your skill set, that you can build it up again. And he did. right? So that's why I say like those two things.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to look. I absolutely do not like Donald Trump, but one thing I can say is he is incredibly charismatic, and his authentically who he is, which is often just, a con man but a charismatic one. Like he sticks to who he is. He was like, I'm not going to pay people all the way and save money that way. And he did that for decades, but that got him money. And there are people who invest in that kind of business mindset. And his network was people who are like that. So as much as I dislike him and have to besmirch the way he operates, he is consistent. He chose a path and pattern that worked, and he stuck to it. And I think if you take nothing else from him, that is an incredible lesson in business and mindset to take from him.
And political opinions completely aside, it was just an example that if you have a certain skill set and you have a network you can rely on, then you always will end up on top somehow, like in character and all of that, we can completely put aside. It was just one example of many,
Yeah, but I think it's incredibly valuable to take lessons from people in this way. And again, like him or hate him, he's incredibly successful depending on your definition of success. And if you can take the right things away from that, you should look at that and say, how can I become better person, like knowing what to do or what not to do, depending on who you look at.
So to make it round, like why I wasn't scared, because I had the skill set and I had the network, and I knew, okay, I have 4,500 phone numbers just in my phone. So, and I can restart the business any day, and I can build a whole new group of clients, of affiliates, but also other businesses. So I don't do only network marketing. I have 5 businesses in total I'm running. And like one of them is like completely traditional, like the Jiu-Jitsu schools, as I said. A few others are online. We have an online course we teach in Germany specifically and sell there, which is present like a pro. It's about keynote speaking, because I do a lot of keynotes for big audiences. So we take people there. But this all came then through the network, right? Because I have business partners in the businesses. My partner in Dubai for our Gracie Baja schools is my former coach from Dubai, right? Also network. That's what I'm saying. Like we always stood in touch. Even I left the country a while ago. Like we became close friends, and as part of the network. And suddenly, out of the network, there's a business opportunity, right?
I like to call it social capital, right? Like I think about it. I don't know where I heard the phrase specifically. I think now it gets thrown around a lot, but I've been calling it social capital in the sense that like I will constantly try to do things for people and not ask for payback, whether that's financial or whatever. And then occasionally somebody's like, hey, by the way, you did this thing for me many years ago and I haven't forgotten about it. And I'm like, sometimes I'll be like, that's great. Who are you? Because for me, it's just a method of operation. Not that I'm willingly forgetting people, but as we talked about earlier, my memory is not what it used to be. So sometimes I'm just like, yeah, okay, cool. I'm glad that worked well for you.
It's also a version of help others to be successful, and you will be successful because you get paid it back. Or it's also what I said before, give and you will given back by 100-fold or whatever somehow, And I do the same thing. Network also means nurture your social surrounding, right? If someone has a problem and I cannot help directly, I usually connect them to someone, right? So as of now, we did 27 to 28 business openings and Emirates IDs in the UAE for people I knew or I didn't know before. But I have a guy who does it for an amazing price. I don't get anything for that. I just refer him, right? And people are super happy. And then they come back one day and say, hey, everything worked out fine. And sometimes there are other opportunities coming out of that. Mostly not, but it's cool. I'm happy when they're happy.
I think that's a great idea to sort of perpetuate and help people to do, because when you pay it forward, other people pay it forward. I really like that.
Not everybody though.
No, not everybody. I mean, yeah, the person should be deserving. Yeah. So you like you own or you partially own that school in Dubai. Is there anything I'm curious about jujitsu in Dubai that's um culturally different? I mean, I know you talked earlier about having so many black belts, but I've trained in maybe 25, 30 different countries, and I feel like it's different, but I've never trained in Dubai. Like, what is different to you in Dubai versus other places?
First of all, Dubai is, I would say nowadays, the Jiu-Jitsu hub, even bigger than Abu Dhabi, even though Abu Dhabi started it with ADCC.
Yeah.
There's a huge culture around BJJ because the military and the police are, it's an obligation to train Jiu-Jitsu. That's why they brought all those Brazilians there in the first place. They all worked for one company called Palm Sports, and that company basically catered to the military and the police. So it was a big opportunity for many Brazilians who were not so wealthy but great in the sport to finally make a living out of jiu-jitsu without even being a competitor, because the sport didn't pay much back in the days.
Yeah.
So, which means first of all, the culture is that everybody's welcome, because you literally have drop-ins every day. I mean, right now we have around in Dubai, think it's 90,000 people per month coming currently to Dubai. So the population is growing like crazy, right?
Yeah.
We have all the big schools. We have Nogueira there. We have Royce Gracie there. We have Gracie Bahano there. We have what's his name from London?
Hodger?
Hansel Gracie.
Enzo. Okay.
Yeah, so everybody's there. Basically, has their own schools. A 10th Planet just opened, so it's almost like in the United States, where you have all the schools. You have the same like in Dubai now, but you can literally drop in anywhere. Open mats are usually organized in WhatsApp groups, so we have open mats where all the black belts meet. And then possibly you have like 40, 50 black belts on the mat for an open mat, which is kind of crazy. And they're like 2 colored belts, those poor guys, But no, I would say in general, it's a very welcoming culture, right? And very fast developing level-wise and skill-wise. The other thing, what I would say is a little bit of a downside for, like, from my opinion only, that's like my personal opinion, is we have a huge MMA culture as well. So we have like guys like Hamza Chimaev now living in the UAE, training there. We have a lot of like Dagestani wrestlers, and they also sometimes come to open mats, and they wear like a white belt, but are a Dagestani, whatever, national champion in wrestling, and different mentality. So you need to be a little bit careful sometimes. When someone comes with 2 cauliflower ears and wearing a white belt and having a beard but no mustache, be careful,
I find that still happens sometimes with like luta livre, right? Like you get a jiu-jitsu white belt, they come in and they're luta livre black belts, and you're like, why did I just get killed by this person with like a backside 50-50 inside heel hook? And you're like, what? With white belt? And then you're like, oh, you're a luta livre black belt. I get it.
Yeah. But the culture is great. I really love it. And it's also very much, I don't know the word in English, but maybe you know the German word, Breitensport. Do you know the word?
Yeah, it's like just like there's a wide variety.
So yeah, it's catering to the masses, right?
Yeah,
so there's
like a lot of
yeah.
availability. I get. Yeah, I think. There's the word. The direct translation doesn't exist in English.
Yeah. So yeah, catering to the masses, more like amateur, like having the moms and dads, the housewives, the managers, the lawyers, the workers, like everybody's kind of represented, and not with the will to be a competitor. But on the other side, we have the Worlds in Dubai every year. So there's always there are always like great competitions where everybody can participate as well. There's even a stadium in Abu Dhabi called the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Stadium. So culture is great.
Very, very intensely cultural. You moved to Mauritius. Like what precipitated the move to Mauritius? I feel like that's not a common place you hear about people moving to.
So I live between Dubai and Mauritius, actually. So we have places or spots in both places. But it's the contrast. So in Dubai, everything is, first of all, Dubai is not as you see on TV if you've never been there, right? It's not all luxury and supercars and, You don't need to be a millionaire to live in Dubai. So that's BS, right?
Yeah.
You can literally with I would say like a European wage, you still could live good in Dubai. Okay. But it's very dynamic. It's very fast, and it's very much Disneyland. It's super safe. But we were thinking, my daughter obviously is of different skin color. So my wife and I are white. My daughter is black. And there's not so many places where you have, I mean, there's always, I would say racism is everywhere somehow, but the racism is so low in Dubai that there definitely is one place we want to live. But then talking to all my friends who have teenagers, they all kind of regret that they that the kid grew up in Dubai because, again, it's Disneyland, right?
Yeah.
And they get like very weird perceptions, even though if you're adult and you understand the world and it's not about money, it's not about materialistic things. If you're in school, and here's a good example, a friend of mine who also just moved to Dubai last week, by the way, business partner of mine, and also in the network marketing space, very successful. She lived in Dubai, and she's also not about fancy stuff. But then her son came home, and he's 6 years now, and he said, "Mommy, why don't we have a Porsche?" Right?
Yeah.
Because he sees the parents of the other kids who like fancy stuff, right, coming with expensive watches and expensive cars, and the kids start talking about that, right? And so that was the moment also when she realized, man, I don't want my kid to grow up in that kind of mindset. It's great to think big, but it's not great to think success equals fancy brands, right?
Yeah.
I recently did a speech as an example. So it was a bigger speech. I think we had like 8,000 people in the audience, and I went on stage in board shorts and flip flops, right? So everybody else wearing the suits, but I just wanted to make a point, and part of the speech was basically ask people, why do you think the brand of your T-shirt is always on the outside and not on the inside? Is that other people can see it and not you can see because you know what you're wearing, right?
Yeah.
So, and success is defined different by any person. And now to your other question, why Mauritius? Because my biggest value of success is freedom, right? And I like to kite surf. I like to be on the water. I like to wear board shorts and flip flops every day.
Yeah.
Wake up in the morning, go out in the sun. I like the laid back lifestyle. In Mauritius, there are no fancy cars, right? It's an island. So I drive a pickup truck here, very, very casual. And if someone would come around with a G-Wagon, people would look like, what's wrong with this guy?
Yeah.
So whilst in Dubai is the most normal thing, it's almost like the Nissan Corolla or something, Toyota
Yeah.
Corolla. Everybody drives an Urus now. So I like the contrast of both. That's what I'm saying. The problem on the island life is, though, if you are an entrepreneur, it's kind of, if you stay too long, you kind of fall into that very laid back lifestyle and you become a little bit lazy because, again, it's the 3 to 5 people you surround yourself with. And in Dubai, you always have that dynamics of being more successful. Good example. And even though I say now, materialistic things are not so intriguing to me, but it is a good example. You go to the marina in Dubai and you see all those boats. And I was in a boat club meaning you pay a few $100s per month and you can rent a boat, I think 4 times a week, which was an amazing deal. So we went wakeboarding, went like barbecuing on the World Island stuff. So you have like smaller boats, which are, I think, like a maximum of 8 meters or something in length. But hey, you're driving with the boat through the marina. How fancy is that?
Yeah.
And then you pass by those like mid-sized yachts and you're like, man, this thing is like $3, $4, $5 million. And it's just parked here half of the year, like what kind of people own that stuff? And then you
there's
say,
a boat fee and the maintenance fees.
Exactly.
And
so you're like, okay, there's levels to it. So there's like millionaires. Then you see like the bigger yachts. Like, okay, there's also multimillionaires because these yachts are not even the marina because they're too big. They're parked outside, right?
Yeah.
And then you pass by Sheikh Mohammed's island and you see like almost a cruise ship and you realize, okay, there's also billionaires, right? So again, not to talk about the materialistic thing, but talking about the levels. If you're in Dubai, you always feel kind of not successful. Doesn't matter how successful you are because there's like 150 people more successful than you in the same area.
Yeah.
And that kind of, if you want to be successful in whatever sense, you're like, okay, let me spend time with those guys and let me find out what they do different, right? And how I can level up. And that's why I like both.
One of the things that's interesting about what you said is you very specifically seem to balance your time between things that are personal and humbling and things that are ambitious and driving. Just to like give the juxtaposition in a clearer sense. Kite surfing, like I've done it a bunch. And it's one of those things where you're on your own, you're doing it by yourself, and it can be dangerous, right? You're out in the water, you can get thrown, you could there's a lot of stuff that can happen. Jiu-Jitsu, it's safe, it can be dangerous, but it's mostly on you, even though you have a team around you. And those things are both humbling experiences. And you juxtapose that against, I have this success in Dubai and wanting to like live in this business focused, ambitious world. Like you juxtapose these ideas for yourself. Is that like an intentional thing?
This is a good question. Never thought about that. I think the sports, kite surfing, specifically like going in the waves, which is a bit more adrenaline kicking, if that makes
Yes.
sense, because you don't want to fuck up if your kite tumbles in the waves. You know what happens. So
Yes.
same like skydiving. Don't mess up with your gear.
Yes.
You're in trouble.
I have made that mistake once.
But I'm also, I would say nowadays very careful since I have a daughter. So I never go out into the waves by myself. I always go with a buddy, right? Just to be safe. Like recently, someone actually died in Mauritius, which was very seldom. But one kite surfer disappeared. They couldn't find him. They don't know what exactly happened. Only found the gear after a while. But he went out by himself in One Eye, which is one of the most, I would say, like challenging wave spots in the world, right? So I don't want that to happen to me. So I'm still careful. I got to think a moment. I would say, let me come. I don't know if you say that in English actually, but we say like, let me roll it from the other side.
We sort of say, let me come back around. Let me come at it from the other direction.
Okay. So let's get back to money. So
yeah,
what is money for? Why do I still like Dubai, and why still I like the success? So money for me is printed freedom. That's number one. So it's not like that. Again, I don't care about cars at all, right? I'm super happy. As I said, like the most expensive car I ever bought was my pickup. It's a pickup truck. It's a Ford, right? So I don't understand people who pay whatever, like $250,000 for a thing on 4 wheels, So it's like, that just doesn't go in my brain. But the resource for me is very important because it's not only freedom for me, it's also freedom for others as we give a lot, right? And don't want to go too much into detail, as we always decided we want to give freely without speaking about it, right? But just as a rough overview, we build orphanages right now ourselves. That's a project of my wife. We always make sure that people who are not in the same privileged situation than we are get helped.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
So, but you need resources for that. You cannot give if you have nothing. That's why it's important for me to build up the resources. But on the other hand, yes, the question is, what do you live for? Because we only have one life, and the older we get, obviously, and I'm pretty sure we've all lost friends already, where we were very shocked, and we realized, man, life can be over very fast. You don't know which day.
Yeah.
So
the
what
military
do you live for?
teaches you that, unfortunately, at a very young age. So that's where I learned it was the military and in firefighting. So
Exactly.
that's something that's a lesson I had early on.
And you're like, man, that could have been me, right?
Yeah.
So if positions would be switched. So but anyways, where was I leading here?
You were talking about why money and what having money allows you to do.
Yeah, you only have one life. That's where we were. What do you live for is always the question. How much success is enough success?
Yeah.
So I have a very good friend, actually one of my business partners and one of my mentors, one of my closest friends. he operates on a whole different level. Like for him, it's also not really about, I would say, the money itself. He loves money and he loves the success and what's correlated to it, but he measures it by buying things. So now his first dream was to own a Porsche. Well, I think it was a GT4. So he bought the GT4. His next dream was a Ferrari. He bought a Ferrari. His next dream was he wanted a Lambo. He got the Lambo Urus. The next thing was, okay, he bought a Tesla just on the side. Now he ordered a helicopter. Okay. So his next goal is he wants a private plane. So, and I once talked to him and I said, bro, like, when is it enough? Because after the private plane, what's next? You will go for a Boeing, like a 737 or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's his way to think, and I appreciate that. And I mean, just his house, he rents his house for $1 million a year, right? So he built houses in Dubai and he rents them for $1 million a year, like insane. Okay. So also whole different level. But again, like, where do you stop? You never have time for, or you don't take the time for the things you really love. You don't even have, now he has hobbies, which or one hobby at least, which I love a lot. But before, there wasn't a hobby. It was always about, okay, making more money. But one day you will just fall dead. And then what? Then you created a lot of money, but when did you spend time with your friends? When did you do things you really love? So that's kind of my point. So I always try to balance that a lot. And I really work on myself to get better family-wise. That's something I'm really, really working on, to be present, to be in the moment, because that is the downside when you have a lot of things going on. When I'm sitting with my family, like typical, when I was growing up, typical German, we sat down and we had dinner all together, right? So back in the days, I was hating it because I was a kid, but now I appreciate it a lot because those conversations already shaped me, you don't realize when you're a kid. But now I want to do that too. But as soon as I sit down and I'm there to play with my kid, like my mind is already, okay, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to do this call, I have to make a transaction here. So that's something I'm learning right now. Personal development never stops.
This is one thing that I really have deeply appreciated about martial arts in general, is that it has taught me the ability to be present, because it's less so in jiu-jitsu. It's overall a little bit safer. But when I used to do a lot of striking, if you tune out for a moment, you get punched in the face, you get kicked in the, and like that ability to force yourself to be present in a moment is something that I've carried from everything, from sports into everything else in my life. When I'm, having podcast episodes, when I'm sitting with my friends, when I'm paddleboarding, when I'm, whatever it is, like that lesson for me was one of the most valuable things I've ever taken from martial arts, is how to be present. It doesn't mean it's always easy, but it is, but I have a pathway to do it.
Yeah, I'm still learning, because in fighting you get forced to it, right? So I read a lot about psychology, nerve system, brain, and so on. And I mean, it's the typical, you are literally in the fight mode, right? Like your sympathetic nerve system takes completely over and you have to be in the zone, right? It's like almost like a natural response. Whilst when you're sitting on the table, it's not, you're not in danger, you're safe. It's the opposite, right? Yeah. So that's why I'm still struggling with it, but I'm getting better, so that's just
what does
something
success look like for you? Because like you've talked about a whole bunch of different versions of success of people that or whatever. Like, how do you define it these days that you have that goal? Like, is it your family? Is it financial? Is it?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I would say success is in all different fields. You have to restart from scratch, right? Because being financially successful does not mean that you're socially successful, or that you're successful in your family, or that you're successful in your religion / belief. Like you really have to ultimately to master all those different fields that are important to you, right? And I feel like I mastered maybe one or two, but there's still many more I have to become much better.
But what is it for you? Like, I'll give you an example. For me, one of my primary definitions of success is being able to have the freedom to do what I want. And that doesn't necessarily mean financially. That means like I get to spend the majority of my day doing things that I love to do. I don't hate my job. I like a lot of the jobs that I get to do between day-to-day work, coaching, the teaching jiu-jitsu, the podcast, the friends that I spend time with, family. Like that to me is a core definition of success. And I wouldn't have defined it like that, 10 years ago. So for you, how do you think of success these days? Like getting to, maybe it's like what is your ideal day? And like, oh, I'm successful because I made that ideal day.
So for financial, it's pretty easy because that was the first thing I wanted to master. Because sometimes people, specifically in Germany, they go around, they say money is not important. That's like an old saying, which is complete bullshit because it is society driven, right?
Yeah.
I'll give you an example in a second. But if money is not important, why do you go to work every day? That's always my counter question. Right. But I understand where they're coming from because I had the privilege to be on Bora Bora a few times. And I made friends with one of the guys who did a coconut show. Okay. So this guy came to the hotels and they showed us what they all do with coconuts. They basically make dishes out of the leaves. They have different ways to prepare the coconut. Super cool dude. Like long hair, like very dark skin, board shorts every day, old flip flops. And then we did a jet ski tour, and I was driving with the jet ski, and I see this guy in a little boat fishing, in the Bora Bora lagoon. So I passed by and I said, "Hey, bro, how's it going?" So we started talking, and then I just asked him openly. I said, "I just have a question. Like, do you think it's fair?" Because he told me what he gets paid, which was comparison peanuts. And I said, "Do you think it's fair because the hotel charges $2,500 per night, right? So all the guests you're doing your show to are like very wealthy and they leave possibly millions of dollars per month in that hotel and they pay you just a little bit." And he said to me, "Look, what do I need money for? I have my son in my boat. We're sitting here, we're fishing. We're going to go back to our home. We have fresh fish we're going to cook tonight. What shall I do with more money?" Right? So I thought that was like a very refreshing idea, but obviously it's cultural, right?
Yeah.
So in Europe, in the United States, you need money to survive. It's just given by society that you need that resource as an exchange for every trade you do. So just wanted to bring that up quickly. My first thing was how to find out to master this one. And there's a great quote from a guy called T. Harv Eker. I don't know if you ever heard from T. Harv. He is the first billionaire in the personal development space, even before Tony Robbins. And he said, financial freedom is the ability to live your life as you wish without having to work for it or being dependent on a third party. And I love that definition. So because financial success for me is directly correlated to, let's say like personal success, whatever you wish you want to do, whenever you want to wake up, whenever you want to travel, whatever you want to buy, if you want to buy things, that you have the resource to do that. But this is only stage one. And I think this one you master to whatever level you reach. If you want to live as a king in Thailand, yeah, with like $3,000, you live like a king in Thailand if it's coming every month residually, right? But if you want to live in Dubai, not so much. But then on the other hand, like what is success in social? Like, do you have friends you can rely on, right? Let's say a good example, you move your house. How many people would come and help you to move your house?
Yeah.
That's always a good example, right?
That's a great example.
So like how many people are really there? So that would be like social success. Success in family is how happy are you, right? So do you, when you see your family, are you happy to spend time with them? Are you willing, and that's how I see it, am I willing to work to have a better relationship with my wife and with my daughter because I want to? So I'm working towards the success also in the family. Otherwise, I would say, I don't care. I just go rolling. I just do jiu-jitsu, whatever. I just go kite surfing, and I don't care if you guys are here or not, right? And also, would they support you, whatever your needs are? Good example, my wife and I, we did everything together. So we're 20 years together now. We went through being successful, but we also went through being completely broke and living from spaghetti and tomato sauce back to being very successful, right? So, but she stood on my side, I stood on her side. So that's maybe how I would measure success there. And in sports, it's pretty easy, I would say.
Yeah.
You know, there's another quote I love, which is just progress equals happiness. One of my favorite quotes, right? And you are successful if you progress. And I think that could in generally be a definition for all kinds of fields of success, if it's financially, social, family, whatever. As long as you progress and you're not stagnating, you are moving forward and you are successful. If you're then satisfied with that level already, that's a different story.
Yeah. I like the idea of targeting contentment, not happiness, because I think happiness is a very difficult thing to achieve, and it's a high in a lot of ways. And I think it's hard to exist at a high in the same way that it's hard to exist at a low, right? Like I like the idea of progress. Like progress over perfection is one of the things I say most often, right? I'm not aiming for perfection because I feel like happiness is perfection in a lot of ways. But if I can aim for contentment and I do that over with progress, that to me has been a good anchor for a better day-to-day life.
Yeah, but also perfection is the lowest standard because you can never reach it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's why progression makes much more sense to strive for. I love what you just said about no one is like happiness. No one can be happy all the time, right?
Yeah.
And I told you before a little bit about my mental health struggles I had to deal with, and that's also an ongoing thing because the brain is an organ like any other organ you have in your in your body,
Yeah.
but it was overseen for so many years, and now specifically from a military standpoint, I don't know if you listen to the Sean Ryan show.
No.
You should really tune in the
Okay.
podcast. So this guy, he started only interviewing operators. He's a former Navy SEAL, and he started interviewing Navy SEALs, SAS, Delta Force, also some unknown names, but also some known names like Shipley, DJ Shipley, and all those guys, and John Schreck. But anyways, what is interesting is that all of those guys, I mean, you have to be cut from a special cloth if you are for so many years in special forces and you have direct actions every single night, for years. But what was super interesting is that all of those guys, or almost all of those guys, have what's now defined as operator syndrome. It's not PTSD because it comes much later. So they can handle the stress and the trauma for 5 years, 6 years, 8 years, 10 years, but it will catch you sooner or later, right?
Yeah.
So now finally, he was one of the first guys. Everybody started talking openly about mental health issues, specifically with veterans. But then more and more people, also entrepreneurs, came up with it. And I think everybody who is a high performer has a different kind of stress level, and you have to cope it somehow. And if you don't learn how to, it's hard. So, but one thing I learned was, I mean, it's so easy to understand, but you don't see it. We just go through natural emotional ups and downs. That's just how we are.
Yeah.
So, which equals at the same time, you cannot be happy at all times. It's impossible. So, but then what are you looking for? If happiness is not always at all times, what are you looking for? And then, I would say progression and also being thankful, having gratitude is something that always helps. When you're not happy, just look back what you already achieved, right?
Yeah. I think that's a really great way of looking at it. I want to comment on something you just said about operator syndrome and PTSD. And this is something so I struggled with PTSD for a while because I was in Iraq. And when I came back, I was anxious about walking anywhere near a window because we would get shot at and stuff like that. And I learned that the struggle with PTSD often came from always being reactionary. And there were much fewer instances of PTSD with, Rangers and with special forces because they were often, not always, often on the offensive. So they were able to get themselves ready mentally, emotionally to go into that situation. And because they were less reactive, they were able to obviously now it comes out much more as operator syndrome, which is the higher stress level. But that lesson that I took from dealing with my PTSD was whenever I have the option to not be reactive, but to like try to prep myself in advance. That was a huge lesson that I took away from dealing with the downsides of PTSD and the onset depression from it and all those things.
Yeah, but you as Americans, you were in a whole different situation because they literally throw you in a war zone,
Yes,
like in your deployment, and then okay, deployment is over. Go to Starbucks tomorrow, right?
exactly.
Like what? So,
Exactly. Yeah.
And how do you
They did
deal
give
with
us
that?
10 days of transition, if I remember right. It
Yeah,
was 9 or 10 days. And then I promptly got pulled over in my local town for going like 140 miles an hour because my brain was like, no, the last time you were in a car, you were driving as fast as you could and like weaving under a bridge to avoid IEDs. And I just didn't transition very well.
yeah, and also your awareness changes so much. You're constantly looking out for threats. You just walk with your, and that's one of the things I mentioned before, like when I was in Uganda, unknown country, in the forest, every noise I hear, like stress levels through the roof. I couldn't sleep. My wife sleeps like a baby. I'm like, okay, so what if someone comes? Because we heard of stories, very rarely happened, but of raids, that people raided even orphanages, stole stuff, came. And then that's another thing. I don't know if you've ever been deployed to Africa or have been there, but kids are securities and they have like old AKs or something, and they're securing the banks or they're securing any store. They don't even know how to handle a weapon, right? And I'm always like looking out if some of them would go crazy, what like what to do. But anyways,
Yeah. Oof, that's
so
scary.
yeah, just wanted to say that no one should be ashamed of having mental issues in general. That happens everywhere, and I would say there's so many people who got saved through jiu-jitsu
Yeah.
with their depression, with their mental health issues and anxiety, because they finally have A, an outlet, and B, they have a community that understands them,
Yeah.
right? And you really have that also. Of course, we also roll with females, but you also have that male energy around you, and but in a very positive way, not in a I'm the alpha and I want to be an alpha 2 way. It's literally like, hey, we help you out.
I think there's something really interesting about the fact that antidepressants, like for sure, there's people who need antidepressants. And once it gets really bad, like that's the thing that you need. But antidepressants on the whole have something like a less than 20% success rate. Maybe it's like 10 or 12%, but exercise has like a 30% success rate of reducing depression. And then on top of that, if you not only do the exercise in jiu-jitsu, but you get the community from it, those are both ways to really help pull yourself out of those deep holes. And like you said, I've used martial arts and jiu-jitsu in a lot of years over my, mental health ups and downs.
That's it's a great tool. I mean, at the end, if you have any kind of, let's call it disease, you need a tool to get over the disease. Sometimes it can be medication, but if you have an injury, yeah, you do physiotherapy, right? To like to strengthen your whatever what was ruptured before. But yeah, you might need the surgery. Sometimes you might need some medication for start off, but then long term you need a tool, right? And yeah, jiu-jitsu is a great tool, definitely.
So I normally ask people at this point, like if there's any piece of advice you wish everyone knew, but we've talked a lot about that, like, and you've done a lot in your life, like you've really
I,
covered a spectrum. Like
I,
what do you want
I
people
think I
to
have
know?
an advice,
Yeah,
a
please.
pretty straightforward one.
Yeah.
A white belt is a black belt who never quit. So if you want to become successful, you start as a white belt. But if you quit too early, you will not get to the black belt level, right?
Yeah.
So don't quit. Go through the ups and downs. If you take our sport, yep, you will get smashed in the beginning, right? But you will get better. Yeah, one day you will be the one who smashes. Then you will learn that you don't need to smash anymore, right? Then you will learn how to have full control over a role. So same happens in entrepreneurship and in life. Just don't quit, and you will get there eventually. Everything is uh, a journey. Enjoy the journey.
The only thing I would caveat, and I love that advice, but the only thing that I caveat is in addition to not quitting, make sure you're looking out for ways to help yourself in that journey. Like you use mentors, but like there's the idea of making it fun or making it interesting or being grateful for the journey. Like it's very difficult to not quit if you're not appreciative or grateful or enjoying yourself.
Agree.
What are you excited for in the future?
Working on myself for sure, getting better. As I said before, becoming a better father because the journey is quite new. She's turning 3 in November. So complete a new adventure,
Yeah.
And yeah, in general, I'm enjoying the journey. I never know what's coming next. I think the world is going to change a lot. So AI is coming. We didn't talk about
Yeah.
that, but just on a side note, I don't know if everybody realized we are in August 2025 right now, and Grok 4 just launched, GPT-5 just launched, which both they say is the closest to an AGI, artificial general intelligence. Yeah, so we're close to having an artificial super intelligence, and either, I know there's different camps, either it will be changing the world for the good or the opposite. Who
Yeah.
knows? There's no safety protocol.
We can spend a few minutes talking about AI because this is something that I work in. Like, my company, we have an AI product that does computer vision. We use it very intensely. I have I have 100+ developers that work for me. So I spend a lot of time thinking about this. The interesting thing for me about AI is all of the inverse lessons that we're all of a sudden learning. And I could legitimately talk for hours about this, but we're learning that, just because you've got a business doesn't mean it's a good business, right? OpenAI is making tons of money, but losing tons of money. We are learning that like making these businesses come at a cost, all of the climate impact on the construction materials. We're getting wonderful technology out of it, like power generation and network equipment and like all of these things. And then we're also learning that AIs learn better learning like humans, like the AIs that are most functional are the ones that are taught with simple stuff and then complex stuff, not everything at once. That to me has been fascinating to watch from the outside.
I think everybody has to be aware that jobs will disappear 1000%, and that pretty fast, faster than we think. A few years back, I always said we don't have to worry about 2 specific categories because AI will never be able to be creative. It is already gone.
Yeah.
And the second thing was AI will not be able to build a relationship. And this is also on the edge of being gone. I'm pretty sure in 2-3 years time, people will just have conversation with their personal GPT, call them Laura, when they
This is already happening.
when they're in the car, yeah, and just talk like to a friend, So there's so many jobs that will literally disappear. Programming, we just programmed the whole website through AI. The whole coding was done through AI. We just said what we want, boom, was done. Yeah, programmers right now are saying, oh, they will never be as good, or I can do it better. Still,
No,
but wait
they will.
6 months or
I've been
12
writing
months.
code for 35 years, and I can tell you that AI is just as good, if not better, in a lot of ways. It's not replacing engineers yet. I think we're still at least a year, maybe 3 or 4, depending on how quickly it advances. But yeah, of course, you'll be able to replace engineers.
Another example, I'm also in the training space. So basically our product is we teach people how to build. So we have an education platform and we teach people how to build business online, which can be trading, Forex, which can be crypto, e-commerce, like all of that. Looking at the trading space, for example, I don't know if the trading space as it is right now will be around, because as soon as AI takes over, it will equal the playing ground. Everybody who has access has the same, like the stock market.
It already can do that. That's the thing, is that it still hallucinates a bit. But if you go into GPT-5 or Claude and say, hey, I don't know anything about, e-commerce, give me and I want to sell on Shopify. Give me the first 5 things that I need to know, structure it for somebody who has only been, like a cashier or whatever you've been for your life. And like, teach me those lessons through that. And all of a sudden you can have a full training plan, with references to go get better in, validate your assumptions and your thoughts. Like, it already can do this if people put that effort in.
Yeah, and we use I mean, what most people don't know, but over, I don't know the exact number, but it's certainly over 80% on the Forex market is algorithms. They're
Yeah,
still
that makes sense to me.
overseen. Yeah, they're still overseen by usually like floor traders or experienced traders, because they cannot yet read the news as good as a human can because interpretation, but give it a few more months,
Yeah.
and the whole like news website, boom, done. So what I'm saying is, it doesn't matter what kind of business or job you have right now. It's always good to diversify,
Yes.
to have like different things. And one guy I hated years ago was Gary Vaynerchuk. Okay. I couldn't listen to him because that was exactly the opposite of me. It was always about hustle, 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 hustle 24/7, never have time for yourself. You need to build, you need to build. I hated that message, but recently he has changed, right?
Yes, he has, which I very much appreciate.
And his new message I love a lot. Now I'm listening to him a lot. And he said, number one, so I recently started working more on the socials. I don't like being on the socials, right? But he said literally, hey, in one of his speeches, hey, to all the entrepreneurs who think they don't use TikTok because it's Chinese. And I was like, that's me, said, you can close your business if you don't do it, literally, because you cannot win against technology. And that quote is so deeply anchored now. That's why I'm so, as an amateur, going into AI to understand AI better, because it will happen if we want it or not. So either you go with it or you will go, right? So yeah.
I also have a Gary Vaynerchuk thing that has stuck with me my whole life, but in a completely weird, different way. This must have been 15 years ago at this point. He was giving an interview, and it was like not even a famous thing. And he goes, I'm relatively famous at this point in my career for wine. And if I could get everybody to understand one thing about wine, you should drink whatever you like, and it doesn't matter how much it costs, because you can find a great, $5 bottle of wine, a $10 bottle of wine, $30 bottle of wine, and $3,000 bottle of wine. Like, drink what you like and don't care what anyone else says, including me. And for some reason, that particular thing has stuck with me my whole life.
True.
He's a great mind about that stuff. What is it about AI that you're particularly interested in?
I would say like the whole development in general, and just being prepared of what's coming. So another reason you asked me before, why Mauritius? Okay,
Yeah.
so Mauritius is a rock in the Indian Ocean. So the world is going a little bit, is a little bit tricky right now. Let's say it that way. How there's a lot of division in general in the world, between in the Western world, like left and right, everything goes, either it goes like all the way to the left or all the way to the right. There's almost no middle anymore, which is
pendulum
insane.
swing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So this creates a lot of diversion, a lot of like aggression as well. Then you have all the wars. We have in Europe, we have currently the Ukraine-Russia situation. A good friend of mine, a business partner, lives in Thailand. He calls me last week and he says, I cannot come to the meeting. I have to pick up my wife's family from the border of Cambodia because they're just firing. It's like, what the fuck's going on, So then we have the whole Middle East situation. And even though Dubai is considered the Switzerland of the Middle East, it's still Middle East.
Yeah.
And Iran is not very far. That's like 80 kilometers, I think, over the canal, right? Maybe 200. I don't know exactly.
My geography is not that good either.
It's not far. Like it's at least in reach of artillery, right? So or any kind of fire, let's say it that way. So here you're very safe. Also from a technology standpoint, Mauritius, they're still doing advertisement on Facebook. So they don't use Google. They don't use Instagram. If you want to find something, go into a Facebook group, right? So that was one of the reasons why I said, okay, if the world goes crazy with AI and it goes into the wrong direction and AGI turns into ASI by itself, and we have no safety protocols, and then you have it
doesn't matter where anybody is at that point.
Yeah, also true. But if they shut down the internet here, I can still have some chickens and go fishing,
Yes, that's fair.
So yeah, but I think I would say that's the kind of the worry. But then the other side of the worry is there will never be a safety protocol because we are just humans, right? One started with a nuclear bomb and everybody jumped on it. I want to be first. And
Yeah.
it's kind of the same here. If everybody would agree, okay, for humanity, let's put safety protocols all together, let's slow it down, would be much safer, I guess. But instead of, every country wants to be first, every company wants to be first. They want to
Yeah.
use it as a weapon,
It's a game changer when it happens, but I fortunately think we were quite a number of years away from that, at least 10 plus. But
Hopefully.
I do like what it does. I like, for me, it's given me many more hours in the day. It allows me to plan things better. It allows me to learn things better. And it allows me to improve myself in ways that, I didn't know, like, that I was going to have, in effect, a personal assistant to do,
Yeah.
Like, hey, teach me
Yeah.
about
No,
how to have this emotional conversation. Teach me how to be more present. Like, give me some tactics. And you could search that on Google, or you can say, here's what I'm struggling with about this thing, and have a conversation. And it's usually pretty good at this
yeah.
stage.
Also in business, when we now opened the gym, a lot of the research we did with GPT,
Yeah.
right? Was much easier than going on Google Trends and doing everything on my own. But there was one thing, we did the whole accounting for the business opening. We just fed it all the costs, everything we did, put me out a sheet. What's the ROI? When can we hit the ROI? What's the worst case, best case
Yeah.
scenarios, normal case? It's a huge help for those kind of things. Also for like, for example, I said I don't like social media, right? Why didn't I like social media? Because I hated putting captions, right? Because it took so much time, and I'm not a writer. I like to speak. I like to listen to audio. I'm not a reader either. I mostly listen to audiobooks. But now when I do a social post, so I have my video, and I just explain quickly what's in the video, and I say, hey, I need a caption for that video. I'm just walking the beach, and I'm talking about beach money, financial freedom. This, and this are what I'm saying. Can you please write me an inspirational caption and give me some hashtags? Thank you.
Yeah.
So done.
It's utility. And that's, I think, a beautiful thing. I like AI as a tool because it gives me more time in my day. And I think of it as a tool. And I try to take care of the tools and use them in the way that they're supposed to be used.
Yeah.
Right.
Another thing I'm a bit worried about is that people become way more stupid,
That's for sure happening
because
because you don't need to learn as many skills. You can just ask for the answer.
yeah. And you and I, we remember the time when you went from A to B and you had like a proper map,
Yes.
right? And you needed to draw out the map, plan, and we could still use it, but
Yes.
nowadays, if the internet breaks down, people would be lost.
Yeah.
They wouldn't find their way from Berlin to Frankfurt.
When I was young, my dad used to make me, I was like, but we have a calculator. Why do I have to do this math? And he was like, I will not allow you to use a calculator in this house until you can show me that you know how to do it. And then after that, use the calculator as much as you want. And so that's been like a mentality for me, is that I always learn how to do the thing as best I can. And then I just ask for the answer after that.
Yeah, and it's a great advice because also, at least as of currently, I don't know if you ever did mathematical equations or tables or anything with GPT. It fucks up a lot.
It does. Yeah.
And if you just believe what you see, right? And you say,
Especially with accounting things.
yeah.
I was doing a comparison because the company I work with, we operate in a whole bunch of different countries. And I asked it to output a table for me with American GAAP because I needed to, generally accept accounting principles, because I needed to hand it to one of the people in my finance team who worked in the US. And I said, can you also give me a copy of this with German GAAP? Because I needed to look at it in Germany's generally accepted accounting principles, and the outcomes were completely different. And I was expecting like a little bit of a difference, but they were completely different. And I was like, please walk me through all of your logic. And then I found that it decided, well, Canada and America are close together, so I'll just use Canadian GAAP principles and whatever. And I was like, man, if I hadn't thought about that, like, why are these things so wrong? Like, because I knew the troubleshooting that I would go through as a human, I was able to ask it to walk me through that. And that's scary to me, not seeing enough people understand the troubleshooting steps to find those problems or to diagnose that there could be problems.
you're also believing everything. I mean, Google VO3 now, you see all the viral videos. I love the Bigfoot who does Jiu-Jitsu. Have you seen this one?
I have, that's great.
Yeah, that's so funny. But of course, it gets better and better. You can still catch it. You know, you look at anatomy and you see there's like here and there's an error, but it's also a month away. And people believe everything. They already believe stuff without questioning. And what scares me also a lot is, again, it's like stupidity of people, right?
Yeah.
They watch a short and they all have an opinion, but they don't realize a short is a fraction without context.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you see. You don't have the context. You don't know what happened before and after, and you come to a conclusion. That's not not logical thinking.
There's one thing that I really like about the German educational system compared to the US is the German educational system teaches about propaganda and teaches about the idea of context and thought. And that is not something we learned at all in the United States. Like I was fortunate in that I had parents who taught me, immigrant mother and stuff, to look for those things. But Germany teaches it as part of the educational system, which I think is a wonderful thing given the age of AI. And I feel like in a lot of ways, Germans specifically are more ready to deal with this kind of a thing than on the whole than like say America or other countries who don't have that as part of their curriculum.
Yeah. And another example quickly, like believing things. I once made a video series about Dubai, and I wanted to have fun facts about Dubai, right? We can have as videos. So I asked GPT, but there was an earlier version. I think it was 3.3.0 or 4.0 even. No, 4 was the last one. It was before 4.
3.5.
3.5. So, and it came up with a few very good ideas. And idea number 6 was in Dubai has flying cars. So just randomly, right? And I asked it and I said, why are you saying it has flying cars? There is no flying cars in Dubai. It doesn't exist. Oh, I'm sorry. That was the whole answer I got. I give you a new one. So I don't know how it came up with that, right? But now imagine you're like a 16-year-old or a 15-year-old, and you just believe everything GPT tells you, right? So now we also come into a space where talking propaganda, right? So someone still feeds it or controls it to a certain degree.
Yeah.
For example, there was a big thing coming up with the, let's say, like what the right-leaning, I don't want to say right and left, but you know what I'm talking about. Let's say like rightish people came up with and ask a few questions, and it came up with the idea to only show like woke things, right? So again, like where's the information coming from overall, right? So because in that particular moment, it was like very much woke leaning. And again, without any political opinion here, it's dangerous because now if you would go, let's say there's a big election again, which happens every 4 years in our countries, right?
Yeah.
So, and suddenly people go to GPT and trust it blindly. And now someone finds a way to manipulate what it got fed because
this is happening, right? Like there's Russian bots creating millions of sites and just trying to overwhelm it with information. And this happens from other countries, not just Russia. But to me, what I think is really valuable to remember is that technology moves faster than humans and cultural evolution can keep up in our day and age. And so like, to me, this is an analog, right? The analog is in the, whatever that was, 30s or 40s when they did the War of the Worlds on the radio. People were like, wow, you can just make up information and get it to the masses. And then everyone learned, oh, you can actually make up information in this way. And then you see something on TV because movies are able to be done in more creative ways. And you're like, wow, should I just believe everything I see? And then the generational change had to occur where people learn that you don't trust everything on TV. And then with CGI, it was the same thing in the 80s and 90s. And now we've learned this. And the same thing's going to have to happen with AI and the tools with AI. But the generations have to learn what they can trust. And that change hasn't happened yet. And technology is just moving too quickly.
Yeah, and let's close with a positive note.
Yeah,
so
totally.
What I'm excited for is let's take my knees. So yes, artificial knee on one, cartilage issue on the other. So why I'm not doing my other knee right now? Because I think in the next 2, 3, 4 years, there will be a cure for cartilage, for cancer, for all of that.
I agree.
possibly by AI, right? So that's definitely a positive note. Then also when people are scared about their jobs, it's a fact that jobs will disappear, but jobs have always disappeared.
Yep.
So there was an industry 150 years ago. There were no carts, there were horses.
Yeah.
If you think about it. So the whole horse and how you call the thing you pull with a horse,
The
uh,
carriage.
the carriage, yeah. So the whole carriage industry disappeared, doesn't exist anymore, but it got
Yeah.
replaced by something else. So same will happen here.
I completely agree. I hope some of the universal basic income catches up for some of the people that where jobs just disappear and take too long for new ones. But yeah, I agree. Is there anything you'd like to promote?
When you're ever in Dubai, check out Gracie Baja JBR. Okay, opening in September 2025. Whenever you listen to that podcast.
Yep.
So drop in. And other than that, if you want to follow me on Instagram,
I'll put all of
maybe we
your
drop
your stuff in the show notes, Instagram,
it over here.
YouTube.
Exactly.
Cool. Thank you so much for your time, Fabian. This was a wonderful conversation.
Thank you. It was amazing. And yeah, maybe we can roll one day. Whenever
That
I'm in
would be my
Germany
hope.
or you pop by in Mauritius or in Dubai, let me know.
That sounds like a plan to me. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. If you have any questions about network marketing, entrepreneurship, or kite surfing, feel free to reach out to Fabian. If you find yourself near Dubai or Mauritius, try to catch him for a roll. You can find his contact information in the show notes. And as always, thank you for your time and attention.